the exercises that do my head in, because obviously for women,
Yep.
it's just glutes, glutes, glutes.
Of course,
glutes, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
all women want, right? But all the exercises that they're showing, like, I don't know, maybe a cable kickback works for some people. I think it's absolutely trash.
Yeah, so it's funny. I have my personal opinion and biases on exercises. Don't get me wrong. Like, I can show you photos of my guys and girls that I've built like glutes for. Now, powerlifting and bodybuilding specific, right?
Yeah.
And you could ask them how many glute kickbacks they've done. 0.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to glute kickbacks. Now, to say that they don't work would be wrong, because they do. The actual level of execution and skill to do it effectively is really difficult. To get the right line, to get the right movement, there is just better exercise selection in play. It's like, for me, like, I can't stand glute bridges.
Right.
And hip thrusts. I genuinely can't stand them.
Really?
Yeah, I'll only ever program them if a client has to have them, because, you know, that's what they love doing. It's like, fine, because again, I have to work with the client.
Right.
If they're not happy, they're not going to do it. But
yeah, right.
so like a hip thrust and glute bridge, if we look at a movement and we look at an exercise and like muscle is built in the lengthened position, not the shortened position.
Mm-hmm.
So lengthened position basically breaks down
That's
tissue
eccentric,
effectively.
right?
Yeah, the eccentric. That's
Yeah.
where muscle's built. And that's where the whole old school principle of eccentric loading became a thing, where you can overload the eccentric phase. Concentric is just an expression of force, how fast you can move something, or how fast you can contract that tissue. That doesn't in itself necessarily build tissue,
Right.
which is a really weird concept for people to believe. It's like, it does, don't get me wrong, it does build tissue, but it's not the building tissue. Lengthening the tissue builds it.
Right.
Yeah, it handles load as it stretches.
Right.
Not contracting.
Yeah.
Think of an elastic band.
Yeah.
You stretch an elastic band.
Yeah.
And then you let it go. That spring isn't what builds pressure. That's the
Right.
expression of the force.
Yeah,
that
right.
force is expressed by pulling the band.
Right.
That's where we're loading.
Right.
Right? So it's the same principle. That's a very, very generic.
Yeah,
I
but
guess.
it makes sense.
Yeah, that's as simple as I can probably put it. So
Right.
when we look at muscle building, we look at the glute bridge. Well, you're barely moving even through the mid-length. It's all shortened position.
Right. So what do you think of, the creator of, what is it? Is it Brett?
Brett Contreras. Yeah, he didn't create it. He's an idiot. It's an absolute tool bag.
Snappo.
Yeah. He thinks that he created the glute bridge when it was out 30 years, I think, before him, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And then you got like Coach Kassem, who's invented the Kassem glute bridge hip thrust thing. Like, he put his name to it. Now, they're both, don't get me wrong, they're both very smart individuals.
Yeah.
Trying to obviously, make their mark on the world. Now, again, it doesn't deviate from the simple science, which is you can't lengthen. It's harder to build a muscle if you don't lengthen it.
Yeah, right.
And again, it's not to say that you can't build it, because it can. It's just it's not going to build as efficiently. Now, you do an RDL, you're lengthening the glute. Don't get me wrong, you're getting hamstrings, posterior chain, there are other muscles. I'm not saying that it's not working the glute in isolation, but you're still going to get that glute in a lengthened position. Do a 45-degree hip extension. They're called, old school used to be Roman chair.
Yeah.
That's what they were called.
Right.
45-degree hip extension. You go to the mid-length most of the time, and if you have the flexibility, you can get close to the fully lengthened position. Do that. Like,
yeah, you know,
like,
yeah, nah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, instead of doing this small movement that doesn't go anywhere that you need to load with extraordinary amounts of weight.
Yeah.
Well, why just do something else?
Yeah, I don't enjoy doing hip thrust. I think it's just a pain in the ass just to set up to put the thing.
Yeah, to get if you're
And
doing
it's
it on the
just-
bench and stuff, you got to set up the bench. You got to get the right height. You got to move up to it. You got to bring the barbell. Like, it's a pain in the butt. Don't get me wrong. It's more time in the setup than it is doing the actual exercise. And like I said, it's just exercise selection. It's just that there are always, or not always, usually there's a better exercise. And it's just making it manageable for you. Now, don't get me wrong. If you do every other exercise and you didn't get any development, and we can see it and measure it, throw in the glute bridge. Hey, you grew? Cool. You could be an anomaly because everyone's different.
Yeah,
But
right.
we look at the majority, not the minority.
Yeah, no, it's definitely what did you call it? The extension? I don't know what it's called.
Hip extension.
The hip extension.
Yeah. So the old school thing, it was called a 45-degree hip extension.
Yeah.
Old school machine was called a Roman chair.
Yeah, that one took my glutes to the next level. That one, ladies, if you're listening, do that.
Yeah.
That one, and also I also like with Romanian deadlifts. There's nothing wrong with working the hamstrings and the glutes because they look good together anyway. So you need one with the other. You end up looking like a Kardashian.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, your body will always look for balance as much as possible. So it's like you need to have a balance of not just size but also strength.
Yeah.
In hamstrings, quads, and glutes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's where you start to open up possibilities for injuries and stuff like that, where something lacks and something takes over and all this sort of stuff. But
yeah,
it's a different conversation.
Right. So Brett Contreras did not create the hip thrust.
Definitely didn't.
He's always like, oh, I've gone so, I've gone all the way back. If anyone can prove it.
Yeah, well, he's also a big proponent of the frog pump.
Yeah, the frog pump,
yeah. So it's horrendously bad on your hips because it jams your hips. Because if you look at how the femur inserts into your pelvis, getting into that position, like your actual femur head jams in the pelvis.
Yeah, right.
That's not good.
Yeah,
Doing that under load, even worse.
Yeah.
Never mind how the knee, again, looking at the majority, not the minority, looking at how like your knee moves and that sort of stuff. Your knee's a hinge. It doesn't move left to right. It moves back and forth. So if you think in the frog pump position, like your legs are out, knees are out, so you're pushing through the floor and you're pushing your knees down.
Yeah, right.
Which in theory should come from the hip, but not everyone does because, again, not everyone's the same. So you put your knees in a really bad position too. I mean, there's so many things wrong with it versus right with it. Pick another exercise. And that's the assessment I take with exercise selection. It's like, what is good, what is bad? Or like, what has more pros and what has more cons? The one that has the most pros gets put in the program.